Deputy Speaker, in 2017, Anglican archbishops from around the world said in a letter to global leaders, "Climate change is the challenge of our generation." Former US President Obama said that no challenge poses a greater threat to our children, our planet and future generations than climate change. The great David Attenborough said in January this year, "The moment of crisis has come. We can no longer prevaricate." The IPCC report, also in January this year, said climate change creates additional stresses on land, exacerbating existing risks to livelihoods, biodiversity, human and ecosystem health, infrastructure and food systems. Experts and eminent leaders around the world are calling on governments to do something. Here in Australia, Australians have felt all the effects of climate change over the long black summer we just experienced. Last year was our hottest on record, according to the Bureau of Meteorology. It was also Australia's driest year on record. We've seen catastrophic bushfires rage across the country, taking lives, destroying homes, attacking businesses. Cities were choking on a thick layer of smoke, causing breathing difficulties, especially to those who are sick or elderly or who have asthma. And we were warned about this over a decade ago, Deputy Speaker. Ross Garnaut's 2008 Climate Change Review warned governments of the risks of more intense and more frequent bushfires. The Australian Academy of Science warned of the impact climate change would have on the sick, the elderly, the very young and the poor. There is something the Morrison government could do now if it had the political will to do it. The Business Council of Australia, not exactly a left-wing cabal, has come out in support of the Paris Agreement and transitioning to net zero emissions by 2050. Rio Tinto, Australia's second biggest miner, has announced its commitment to action on climate change with a net zero emissions target by 2050. Every Australian state, every Australian territory has committed to net zero emissions by 2050. Yet, standing alone on the burning deck, the Morrison government is opposing progress towards the decarbonisation of the Australian economy. The Prime Minister is completely out of step with the Australian businesses, with Australian governments and the Australian community. His reckless and extreme position is the consequence of the stranglehold the hard right of the coalition has on climate change policy in the coalition. Last week, government data showed there was no reduction in emissions in the quarter to September 2019, and the annual emissions only reduced by a pitiful 0.3% year to date. Now, that is not a canter, Deputy Speaker. That sounds more like someone flogging a dead horse. There's been a collapse in renewables investment under the Morrison government. Just last night in Senate estimates, the Clean Energy Regulator backed industry, business and investors that a lack of climate and energy policy is hampering renewables investment, which would lead to lower power prices for Australians. So rather than leading Australia to stronger economic growth, to higher real wages and lower energy bills by achieving net zero emissions by 2050, the Prime Minister is only concerned about keeping the peace in his divided party room and keeping his job, keeping his backside in #1, to quote the former Prime Minister.